Hey there, today I'm going to talk about starting to repair this quarter panel of my Chevy Blazer. Just to kind of explain what's going on here, this quarter panel is not original to the truck, or at least part of it isn't. 10-12 years ago, this bottom section here was rusted out pretty good, and that's pretty common for these Blazers. And so I welded in a section. It's like a repair patch that you can get that's roughly kind of in this which is roughly in this area here. In addition to that, this fender arch was also pretty well rusted out, and so I have welded in another patch panel here that you can kind of see, and that kind of goes over here around like that, and it's about right there, and you can kind of see all the body filler that I used to kind of fill in the weld joint. Back when I did that, I wasn't very good at welding, and still not that great now, but I think I can do a little bit better job once I remove all this body filler and fix some of the problems. So one of the things that I noticed when I was starting to do this is that I'm using my door as a kind of a template for where things should be, or where things need to go back to being. And so I've done a pretty decent job, I think, of getting this body line matched up in this corner panel to the door. This area down here is pretty good. There's still a little bit of tweaking that needs to happen there. And it starts to get good, and then it starts to get a little bit off as it goes up in here. And you can see up into the very top here, I've got almost, it's maybe 3/16, even maybe a 1/4 inch. This door is a 1/4 inch proud, maybe 3/16 inches proud from this fender, or the quarter panel. And so I need to figure out whether this quarter panel is wrong or whether this door is wrong, because they don't match up. And I suppose it's possible that back 50 years ago, tolerances on body panels weren't that great, but I still think they were probably better than that when they came from the factory. And even if they weren't, I'd like to make it a little bit better since we're doing it now. We got all this stuff taken apart, and we're going to do a whole bunch of work to it anyway. So I think I'd like to try and improve that a little bit. So I can show you what's going on here. Alright, so what you can see is I can get a ruler in there. We can try and find not the metric side. Let's see here. Okay. So you can kind of see, well, it's hard to measure here, but we can call it, let's see, it's really tough to get in there. I might call it a 1/4 inch, depending on where yeah, I'd say we're pretty close to a 1/4 inch off, and so I need to figure out why that is. So as I'm thinking about how to figure out whether this quarter panel is out of plumb, I guess you'd say in the construction terms, or if the door is the problem, ideally you figure out from the factory what the dimension between the doors are, or the dimension between the quarter panels are, to figure out whether they're leaning in or they're even the right position. So luckily I have the factory service manual for the Chevy Blazer, and I was able to find a dimension for it, and we can kind of look here. What I think that dimension is referring to is, if you look up, there's the overall dimension, and inside that tailgate there's a hidden line dimension that I think is referring to this edge. And when I measure that edge from the other side to this side, it is exactly 65 inches. And so I'm pretty confident that that's what that 65 inches is referring to. What I don't have is a dimension for this outside edge, but what I'm thinking is that if this dimension is correct, then I can measure between the bed rails here and find out what that dimension is, and then measure it from here in the back, since I'm assuming that's good because my tailgate lines up, and I'll measure the same dimension up at the front and make sure that the front of that quarter panel isn't tilted in too much. And if it isn't, then I can be pretty sure that the door is where the problem is. And so we'll go take a look at that. All right, so I've determined that the dimension at the back of the bed between these two rails is 66 inches, and so I'm going to measure. Let's see if I can get this measure between the rails here, and that looks really close to 66 inches. So I'm pretty confident that this quarter panel is square and straight with trucking is where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to take a look at the door to figure out where that might be misaligned. So one thing I'm noticing here is that if I have a 1/4 inch here, if the door is pulled out, I might expect to be a 1/4 inch at the other side too. And I'm kind of thinking that this might also be about a 1/4 inch. I don't know if I can measure that very easily. I got a square there. Oh, it's not going to measure. It's about the thickness of this. It's pretty close to the thickness of this flange on this construction square. So if I measure that, I'm willing to bet that is 3/16 of an inch or so. And so yeah, I think that door might need to. This door might need to tip in at the top side, because the bottom side is lined up pretty well. My concern would be what happens up at this top corner of that wing window, and I can show you there. Ooh. And so one problem I'm going to have there is that I've got very little space between here for this to go in another 1/4 inch. So I almost need this to stay where it's at. And actually you can kind of see down here if it's obvious or not. Well, the mirror is in the way here. But yeah, down here I'm also kind of, it does look like it's kind of out, so this door could probably tolerate going in at the bottom here in this area, but at the top I'm wondering that may be easier just to artificially pull that out to match after this door is pushed in a little bit. So we'll go ahead and probably adjust the hinge to do that. And so the whole reason for doing that is I don't want to modify this quarter panel to match up with something that's not right. And so really, I think the first thing that has to be done is you have to figure out, if you're going to figure out where this metal needs to be or where it was in the factory, you have to know where it was in the factory. So if this door's in the wrong place, I'd be wasting my time trying to get this quarter panel to align to it until it's fixed. And so that's probably the next step here. Wrong drawer. 9/16. So for this door to move in closer to the center of the truck, I've got to loosen these 3 bolts and kind of shift the door. It's slotted, so it's able to adjust, and hopefully the adjustment direction on this door is in and out on this top hinge, and so we'll soon find out if that's true. All right, you can see some of my other colors of the 50 that I mentioned in the earlier video. There's a lot of different parts and pieces from different trucks went into making this drivable and runnable. So I'm gonna loosen these 3 hinges here, or these 3 bolts, so I can shift this hinge in a little bit. it does move, so that's good news. Let me snug this up temporarily just to see if it fits, just to see if that fits any better. All right, close that. Something happened. We are definitely tighter over here. In fact, I might almost call that perfect here. Let's see how we are. Let's see how we're in the back. The back here, it's definitely better, but it's pretty decent here, and I might be able to. Let's see. Actually, a lot of this is even a little bit proud here, so I wonder if just adjusting the door latch would get me even farther. I'm still not quite sure what's going on here. It's not quite what I'd like to see. It's definitely better. Let's see if I can measure. Let me try a different ruler. Well, we're gonna have to use inches and centimeters here. I would say that is just a little over 1/8 of an inch, so we got it halfway there, and that's a much better. Even if I don't do anything else, that's pretty good. And so I'm gonna still look in to see if I can figure out if I can adjust the door latch to get this to lock or latch in even deeper. All right, so what I'm deciding to do is, it does look like this latch could be a little more inboard, so that pulls the door a little closer to flush up here. So I'm just gonna loosen those a tiny bit and see if I can nudge it inward just a little bit. It's gonna be tougher than I expected. That might have done it. Might be too much. So let's see. Oh, really close. So we can get in there. You can see right up here we're really good, and then we're just. Let's see if I can measure that. Let's see. That is maybe. It's a little less than. I guess I'd call it a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. It's hard to tell depending on where on that radius we're measuring. But that's better than it's ever been before, and so I'm much happier just with that. And I wonder even if this edge is straight, and I wonder if it kind of looks like it flares up a little bit at the end, and so something we can do is kind of get a straight edge along here and find out. Somebody's wrestling upstairs. So it actually looks like this door is bowed out a little bit in the center, and so I wonder. You know, one thing about these trucks is these convertible Blazers. They were originally made from the full-size trucks that were not convertibles, and so this door originally had a window frame around it that it was cut down and capped off to make it into the convertible version. And so I'm wondering if maybe this being a truck door caused it to maybe they weren't so careful with the body angles, and actually I'm starting to see this door is a little bit flexible here, and so that might be why it's bowing a little bit. And so I wonder if I might be able to just tweak this edge down a little bit so it meets this here, and I wonder if I can take a little rubber mallet or something like that just to coax it a little closer to there. So we'll try that. Alright, I don't know any magic ways to just make it go in, but I'm gonna try my trusty rubber mallet and see if I can just coax that in there. And I'll turn the volume down here to get rid of this bang noise here. Ooh, that got pretty close. Very close. Very, very, very close. We're there. So what I'm going to have to do later when I'm done with this quarter panel is now actually I'll have to straighten out this edge. Now that I got the two ends of it, there's a little bit of a dip right here. So I think I can hammer and dolly that out even with my little skill. That's not too terribly difficult. So especially if this is going to be bowed, it may just have to be. I wonder if I can get that to stay in naturally a little bit instead of being bowed. Because when I paint it, I want the reflection going across the surface just to be really, really nice and straight. And so I don't want to have it be wavy, depending, wherever there's a lump or a bow in the panel. So that's the whole point of this, is to learn how to kind of see if anybody has any smart ways of fixing that. Maybe it's just a matter of heating it up and get it to kind of shrink and bend it back into place. If you have any good ideas on how to do that, I'm all ears. I'd love to learn more. One of the next things, now that this is in place, let's see here. Now that door is more lined up, and I can trust these two body lines. I can trust this body line, and I can trust this surface edge pretty close to where it is. I can trust. Actually, I might need to bring it out a little bit. Even the door is a little tight. So what I'll go ahead and do is next and grind out all this body filler and see where the natural metal is. And so what I'm afraid is that this joint here is kind of puckered in where the weld seam is, and I'm worried about how to get that to come out without getting access to the back side, because this quarter panel is double layered. So I don't have any way to get a hammer or dolly back there, so I have to figure out a way to pull that up a little bit, maybe. So if that's something, if anybody out there knows how to, a clever way of doing that without damaging the parts too much, I'd love to hear about it. So let me know. Alright, so this is one of the reasons I really hate the body filler. It's just a mess everywhere. Anytime you sand it or you have to correct something or fix something, it just makes a miserable mess. And so anything I can do to reduce the usage of it to as minimal as possible, I would love. And so you can kind of see I was able to get rid of all of the Bondo and the filler in here. You can see some pretty serious weld seams here that I can kind of tell are sunk in. I even got a decent sized dent there, and you can see the joint from the previous patch panel. This kind of went over here, and then trying to think of where I joined it. And that might be it for today. I think we're ready. The next video we'll probably start working on that.